What's up, guys? How we doing? Tuesday night hangout, a little bit later edition, the parents edition, I suppose. Get the kids to bed and good to go. But the man himself, who probably doesn't need an introduction, but we'll go ahead anyways. Eagles writer, NFL analyst, NFL draft guru, Anthony DiBona. What's up?
How you doing, man? I'm excited to finally talk. I feel like we've both been, both of our houses have kind of been dealing with sicknesses and with the little kids and whatnot, but excited to finally talk. It's been a while since free agency started, and we have a lot of stuff to talk about.
Yes, that we do. It's been, I felt like offline, we've been texting back and forth like, hey, we signed so-and-so, hey, this signing, this, but we have not been able to get on because of, like you said, all the sickness and everything else. Shout out to everybody in the chat. If you have not already, drop a like, hit the like button, make sure to subscribe. We'll be doing the Cooper DeJean signed helmet giveaway later. So for those that are curious about that, we'll be spinning for it later in the show. But there you go. And I guess this is just a hat episode. People, I see that already kind of freaking out. I don't wear a hat very often. Anthony does. Truth be told, I played golf today, and the hair was just a mess. So it was like, just throw on the hat. So that's what it is. But I love this hat. That's what we went with. So anyway.
Actually, a little peek behind the curtain. I had no hat on when I first joined the call, and then I saw Josh wearing the hat. I said, "Oh no, we can't be switching it up like freaking people out like that." So
there you go, and you absolutely did. So now it's the episode we're in the hat. A real tick with G. Let's go. 10 Philly Special Show memberships to start out with a bang. Congratulations to lots of different individuals that are getting that membership. So congrats to you. Into the emojis and other separate giveaways just for the members. So congratulations. It feels like, I mean, we could start wherever, honestly, with all these signings and, like we say, moves the Eagles have made, but it feels appropriate for Azeez Ojulari as much as we've been texting back and forth, the excitement, the hype, another Philly dog, because why not? You just keep on adding to the roster. But curious to get your thoughts. For people that have not texted you or maybe seen a lot of your tweets, to summarize that, how are we feeling about Azeez Ojulari?
It's funny because it feels like he was like the original Georgia Bulldog that I wanted back in 2021. I pulled up a tweet from back then that I was talking about how I wanted the Eagles to draft him at that time. And then obviously last year's trade deadline, I mentioned him a couple of times. I feel like a lot of people talked about him because obviously now with a Georgia connection in Philadelphia, and now finally this offseason, I listed him again on my list of 25 players that had connections to the Eagles. Obviously not a coaching connection, but obviously with all the 6 other players that he played with in 2020 on Georgia's defense. So now it's finally happened. I didn't think this was going to be what he would sign for. I actually tweeted like a half hour before the signing was reported that I was like, he's probably looking for a little bit more money than we like. He's probably not getting the offers that he expected, so it might take a little bit longer. And then sure enough, he signed for only $4 million. We still don't know. At least I haven't seen the exact guaranteed amount. But either way, it seems like it might cancel out the 6th round pick from that they're going to get from Isaiah Rodgers, according to Jimmy Kempski. But he also mentioned that it depends on the exact figures, and if only say $1.5 million or $2 million is guaranteed, then that might change things up. So we'll see what happens. But either way, it's how could you not love that addition for the Eagles?
Yeah, it's absolutely perfect. I was trying to find the tweet for those people that are curious, just to make sure that you weren't making it up. And there you go. There's the official tweet that I liked, of course, because you shared it and then got the confirmation. But you're right; it was literally like 30 minutes before. And perfect addition. They go ahead and bring Ojulari over. I'm excited about it, as you said, too, the number of reasons. But for $4 million, I mean, like the crazy part might be the fact that we're saying this is, and this very well could be, like, I mean, maybe there's a big trade whatever, like a safety. I hope that there's some sort of safety coming. We'll get to that. But this could end up being the signing. And to say for $4 million is a little bit different than, you go back last offseason and you could name a couple different guys, but, not that he worked out necessarily, but the pass rush, $51 million for 3 years for Bryce Huff versus, hey, yeah, it's only $4 million. But you got the connection with the Philly Dogs, as you mentioned, Azeez Ojulari, that I think a lot of people know and understand. It's like, look, he has potential. He was drafted as a second-round pick for a reason. You've seen it show up on the tape. Yes, he's had some injuries, but I was shocked I wanted him to be signed by the Eagles, yes, but I'm also similar of like shocked with the amount that it was for $4 million. Like, I assumed that it would be more, and a lot of the other expectations on the price and expected market value and all that other stuff was significantly higher than the $4 million. But you know what? If you want to bet on yourself, feels like almost every time that we're recording or talking about it or even texting back and forth too, it's like there's not a better place to go than Philadelphia and test it out with the Eagles, because you see either you could get paid for it, right, and stay in Philly, or you make your money elsewhere because all of a sudden free agency comes around the following season and you're like, well, hey, you've reestablished your stock because you played in primetime games and the coaching, the development, and everything there. So, yeah, I love it, but $4 million, that's a steal.
It's crazy to think about, and it's funny because I know it's been like 2 weeks or so since we last talked, but before free agency, we both talked about how like now Philadelphia's kind of viewed as like if you have an inconsistent market or you aren't really getting the offers that you expected, why wouldn't you go to Philadelphia? Because like you said, you saw what Zach Baun did. Mekhi Becton completely turned his career around. Granted, he didn't get maybe the money that many of us were expecting, but still 2 years, $20 million compared to the offers he had to settle for last season. We had to wait until after the draft to even sign a contract. It's just crazy. Obviously, Milton Williams and Josh Sweat, what they did in the contract year. The rest of the NFL and all the agents, all the players, they take notice of what's going on in Philadelphia. And it's kind of cool also to see the Eagles, where before a couple years ago, they were kind of targeting more of like the ring chasing older veterans, even dating back to last season with like CJ Uzama, where now they're signing younger tight ends where they think like, hey, these guys may have not reached their potential where they were before, but they're still only 26. If we can get just a little bit more out of them in Philadelphia, who knows? Either maybe we sign them to an extension or maybe we get a compensatory pick next offseason. They just have a much more forward thinking approach. And I feel like it's all because of the environment that they have built in Philadelphia, even though they only have now 4, I think, players that are 30 or older now on the current roster or on the projected 53-man roster. So they might have one of the youngest rosters in the NFL next season, but also one of the most stable environments for underperforming players to land in as well.
Not a bad spot. And it also, as others have been mentioning here in the chat too, Ojulari playing on the field in New York doesn't ever, bode well for anyone really. So, you come over to Philly, shouldn't be as big of a deal. Yes, I will just say again, and I probably need a disclaimer at this point because I've seen several different people. I'm wearing a hat, bad hair day. Like, long story short, playing golf, bad hair day.
You're freaking people out, Josh.
I am.
Just throwing them off.
Maybe like the second time that I've probably ever worn a hat on a stream. But that's what's going on. So, no, I did want to bring up the Ocho because you say talk about like the youth, right? Like it's definitely a youth movement. I think what's the average age, something like 25 and a half years old on the defensive line. I mean, the defense as a whole is probably somewhere around that range. But Jalyx Hunt, a guy that you were incredibly high on, very high on before the draft even, but then obviously, Eagles got him and potential and turned out in a way I think that not a lot of people anticipated, quite honestly, just with, hey, he's playing in the Super Bowl and one of the best pass rush win rates and his ability, all that other stuff. Yes, we get it with Fangio. But, I mean, this seems like a foregone conclusion now. Like, obviously, Josh Sweat moving on, but Nolan Smith on one edge, Jalyx Hunt on the other. And he said himself, he's like, look, it's basically time for me to step up. Like, I'm gonna fill Sweaty's shoes. We're competitors now, and I'm hoping to give the Eagles that, if not beyond. Do you think? I mean, he had a great rookie season. It's not even like you're talking about, similarities like Nolan Smith, where people are like, oh my gosh, is he a bust? But he had a great rookie season. Do you think that he's ready for that next step? Is he the guy opposite of Nolan Smith?
I mean, I think so. And I feel like he's kind of followed a similar path during his rookie season of what we saw from Nolan Smith the previous year, where like first half or first 10, 12 games of the season really didn't play well, barely played. And then they were kind of the bright spots, like turning later into the season. And sure enough, Jalyx Hunt got the sack. I still think it should have been a full sack, but it was a half sack in the Super Bowl. And he's really an ascending player. And if you just think about both him and Nolan Smith, yeah, they're younger guys, but the way they carry themselves, the charisma they have, the passion, like even the leadership, they're young players, but they were already kind of setting a tone, being vocal. It felt like no matter who was mic'd up, it felt like you saw Nolan Smith and Jalyx Hunt hyping somebody up or kind of chirping a little bit. So to see those guys now, and Brandon Graham even mentioned Nolan Smith at his retirement speech today, where he was like, hey, it's your room now. And it's like, it's weird because he's only in his third year, but at the same time, people have talked about for years how kind of Nolan Smith resembles a kind of a younger Brandon Graham and how he was, and now he really is going to have that title and that edge room. So I'm really excited to see both of them. And obviously, Jalyx Hunt, like you said, was my guy before the draft. So the fact that he landed in Philadelphia and now he's kind of taking on a bigger role moving forward a lot earlier than many of us expected, I'm really excited how he takes advantage of that as well.
There we go. Big pimpin', roll the dice. Got those two guys in the edge. Azeez Ojulari, Josh Uche. I mean, get some youth. Get some guys that people maybe not quite as high on. But real tick with the G, saying Ojulari feels like a Vic Fangio move. Uche feels like a Howie move, in my opinion. What do you think? Is it a Howie move? Vic Fangio move? Combination?
This might be a little bit surprising, but I think it's actually the opposite. Because I think
Okay.
Uche, because of the amount of snaps that he's played in coverage, I think he might be a little bit more like a better of a fit from day one. And maybe that's why he signed first too, because they kind of targeted him a little bit earlier, but maybe it was just the money with Ojulari. But regardless, I think Uche is kind of a better fit because he has that versatility where Ojulari, he did drop back in coverage, especially a lot more in his rookie season. But since then, he's kind of been more of like a pass rush specialist, almost like the Bryce Huff role that he was playing last season before he kind of got injured and fell off a cliff and was a healthy scratch. So I think both of them can have a role on the team. I think right now, if you're saying that Jalyx Hunt is going to take that Josh Sweat role, I feel like Uche would probably take the Jalyx Hunt role as that third guy, and then Ojulari would be the Bryce Huff like pass rush specialist, third down, obvious passing downs, because he seems like more of a Howie Roseman fit because of the long arms. He kind of has all the traits in that regard. He was like former high pick, and I know Uche was as well, but he just seems more of a Howie like pick that way, whereas Uche is a little bit smaller, like more of like a proven guy in terms of what he's been able to do in coverage. So either way, I think both players, to get both of them for what they're paying them is just an absolute steal. So anything they get out of them is pretty much a win at this point.
Okay. I'm glad that you clarified too, by the way, because you said Uche or Azeez Ojulari like a Bryce Huff, and I know that for a split second, people are going
people are like, oh no, not
hang
that.
on, wait, what?
No.
Do we anticipate anything at all? Maybe it's a rephrase the question. Should we anticipate anything for Bryce Huff in year 2 if he even makes it by the time we start the season?
I mean, I tweeted it out. I feel like the fact that they signed 2 edge players so early, relatively early in free agency, and 2 tight ends, I feel like for him, both Bryce Huff and Dallas Goedert, I know people don't want to see Goddard go, but it feels like the writing's kind of on the wall in terms of if they can get something where it makes it enough, like worthy enough to eat the cap, like the dead cap space, then it seems like they're going to be willing to do it. But at the same time, when you're making these guys so publicly available and you're seeing multiple reporters saying it, Jordan Schultz, whoever else, like that's not a good sign because they're not just putting that stuff out there for no reason. It's not like, oh, we're putting this out there and then I'll just take you back. Like they're trying to get something before maybe possibly just outright releasing them, which you don't want to see, obviously. But it's clear Bryce Huff, especially being healthy and active in the Super Bowl, that just says everything right there. And I just don't know if they like. Obviously, I think they would want to have Dallas Goedert back just for one more season, but I also don't think Dallas Goedert wants to go into the final season with guaranteed money. And meanwhile, he just saw what Evan Ingram got, who's the same age, nowhere near the same blocker, but he got 2 years, $23 million, whatever it was. So I think he would probably want to move on as well if they're not going to extend him beyond this season.
Yeah, and I don't blame Goddard either way because obviously go out and get your money, get your guarantees. So it wouldn't be surprising, but yeah, I think as a lot of people, Huff mentally checked out. Non-expectations. It's not surprising. Yeah. Real quickly before, because I was going to ask about Nolan also. Joe was asking here, what can we expect from Uche and Ojulari in run defense? Because I've seen that question pop up a couple different times. But Joe here with that. It maybe goes back to a little bit of what you were talking about previously, kind of where they fit within those roles. But what do you think? What do you think run defense-wise?
I mean, ideally, I think both of them are more so like pass rush specialists. I don't think either one plays with like the physicality that we kind of got spoiled by with like Brandon Graham. And I mean, obviously the guys Nolan Smith and Jalyx Hunt, but Josh Sweat wasn't much of a run defender before last season either. And we kind of saw like he was kind of criticized for not being able to hold the edge in 2023 or 2024 when the season kind of fell apart. And now obviously he turned that around and played really well against the run last season. So maybe these guys in Uche and Ojulari can kind of turn their careers around. But one thing with Ojulari is besides the injuries that have kind of plagued him throughout his season is he has a lot of missed tackles. And Johnny Page had a good breakdown on Twitter as well, where he just kind of gets to the edge and he's like reaching out for guys. He's not really setting the edge. He's kind of just reaching out, trying to use his length, falling forward. Like, it's not the best technique, but once again, with the coaching staff that they have in Philadelphia, I think they'll be able to get the most out of these guys too.
He's got the tools in his body, as Howie would say. So
Yes.
he's just got to be able to maximize that efficiency. Sometimes, it takes a little bit. Got to get out there on the field, of course, but you're playing with your Philly dogs. So, I've seen people make this case. I talked about it in one of my last videos as well, but it's one thing to go to a change of scenery and not know anybody, not know the system, not know the scheme, like a total reset. And sometimes people need that. Sometimes players need that. Other instances, it's actually nice to go into an environment like Ojulari is, hopefully, where you know the guys. I mean, you're a Georgia Bulldog. You show up with the Philly Dogs. You know what that is. And you saw Nolan Smith's post about even more excited to get back to work, getting that news of Azeez Ojulari, the meetup. They had been working out together. There had been posts previously in seasons before where they're getting some stuff done in Georgia, and Jordan Davis showed up and got some workouts in. Jalen Carter's obviously close or would be nearby. So to be on the same team, maybe it's an extra reason for motivation. But I think even more so, and this kind of goes hand in hand with Brandon Graham retiring today as well, but kind of passing the torch to Nolan Smith, so to speak. We kind of expected that. It said like, hey, there's similarities with Nolan, but BG said it in his press conference. He's like, yeah, Pep, kind of, Nolan's the next guy up. You're one of the older guys in the rooms now. It's up to you. Make a statement. And I think that just goes a long way to say, a year and a half, 2 years ago, people already very, very quick to make judgment on Nolan Smith and a lot of guys in this D-line room, but Nolan Smith in particular, to where now it's, hey, can he or he will be the Brandon Graham replacement? So, I mean, good for him, first off, but I think it's a perfect scenario for where Azeez is, and also just the pass rush in general.
Yeah, because it seems like they're not going to have much pressure heading into the season, whereas like in New York, I know they had Kayvon Thibodeau, then they brought Brian Burns in, but he was kind of, like Kayvon Thibodeau dealt with an injury, so he was kind of, Ojulari was kind of forced to play more. And then the seasons before that, he was forced to play more, but never really got a full-time like starters like share of snaps, even though they wanted him to be a starter. But it feels like in Philadelphia, he's not going to be like forced to do anything. It seems like Nolan Smith, Jalyx Hunt are definitely the guys on the edge right now. I mean, if they have Bryce Huff, whatever they get out of him, I guess whatever. But it doesn't seem like he's going to be in Philadelphia. Who knows? But with Uche and Ojulari, it just seems like a perfect opportunity for them to kind of work with these coaches, kind of fall in line behind Nolan Smith and Jalyx Hunt, even though they're the younger guys, but kind of learn from them and what they've done, how far they've come, and as far as their growth. And like you said, Brandon Graham kind of anointed your boy Nolan Smith like the leader of that edge room. So we've been saying it for years. Like, obviously his play on the field spoke for itself last season, but I've always been very impressed with how he is, like, mentally, and the way he carries himself off the field as well. So I'm really excited to see what they do with like the future of this room, them being so young. They're just in a great situation.
And they're trying to be I guess they're in a good situation, but they're trying to be in an even better one, I suppose, with Howie Roseman and the cap ramifications, some of the moves that he's been making or not making, however you want to phrase that one, but trying to save some cash. Right now, it's obviously, you look around the league, and Derek Stingley getting $30 million a year as a cornerback is insane. You have Cooper DeJean and Quinyon Mitchell, who are like $5 million, $6 million combined. Now, yes, it's rookie deal, so everybody knows, but still, like, the fact that you have that, it's not the same as going like, hey, I've got a rookie quarterback. That could be drastically different. But in a way, it kind of is, because you have two. If you only had one of those rookie starters, then fine. But you got two rookie corners who, quite honestly, played up to, I mean, Cooper DeJean, depending on which grade you take, and all those, a little bit with a grain of salt, but still, Coop was arguably the best slot corner in the NFL last year as a rookie. That's just insanity. And there's, reason why the man himself had a pick six in the Super Bowl and, played lights out and everything else there. But the fact that you have that and Quinyon Mitchell, who top 5, certainly top 10, I mean, just between both of them, if they were on the market getting paid, you're probably what, 50, $55 million between both of those guys. So it's a massive difference. It doesn't always have to be done from the quarterback stance, but it appears like Howie, even last season, we were talking about that in his press conference of saying, hey, we got to get the younger guys on the field. Nolan Smith's got to get more reps. Nolan Smith's got to get more snaps. Same for a lot of the other guys. He definitely did an about face, but it's like he's almost doubling down on it this season to say, yeah, we're sticking with this plan. Like, this plan worked. We're sticking with it because we're paying an astronomical amount on the offensive side. But so far, if you have Vic Fangio, if you have Christian Parker, if you have Bobby King, if you have Clint Hurt, and these positional coaches who can get the guys ready, get the guys improved, then you have a couple seasons next year. Probably you're paying Jalen Carter, but you have a couple seasons as you slowly start to dish out these contracts to defensive players. And then it becomes a little bit more difficult. But I think that the next couple of years, because of Howie and the way that he set it up, it's like, fine, you know what? We're going to have a really young defense, guys that on prove-it contracts or on rookie contracts. And it just makes life so much easier, obviously, whenever they pan out that way. But it just goes back to Howie Roseman and his ability to not only structure contracts, but the drafting ability is really the only thing that makes it possible. Because no other team could do this if you don't hit on draft picks the way that he does.
And it's so funny, right? Because if you look back, like just 5-6 years ago, it was like, this guy can't hit on anything in the draft. And now it's just like, you trust him, especially the first 3 days, like the first 3 rounds. It feels like he's been automatic for about 3-4 years now. And it's just like you mentioned, the way he's kind of able to see and kind of draft ahead of time. Because there's a lot of times where people are like, why would you draft this guy on, like when he drafted Landon Dickerson, like because everybody thought he was going to play center in the NFL. And they were like, oh, Jason Kelce just signed an extension. Like, he's never going to see the field. And now he's like an all-pro, Pro Bowl guard that's one of the best in the league. Same thing with like Cam Jurgens. Oh, he's not going to see the field. Ends up winning a Super Bowl the first year he's a starting center. Like, it's just, he's always ahead of time. And then, like you said, with the defensive players, he drafts Jalen Carter. Following offseason, all these defensive tackles get paid. He drafted Nolan Smith, Jalyx Hunt. Now Myles Garrett just got paid. He drafted Quinyon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean. Now J.C. Horn, Derek Stingley, Sauce Gardner. All these guys are going to get paid. It's just like he's able to kind of, and if like people are like, oh, well, now that means you're going to have to pay all these guys at the same time. That would be a great problem to have. And the one thing that the Eagles have shown is that as far as their like blue chip players, yeah, they have had to let go of guys like Milton Williams or Josh Sweat, but they didn't let Zack Baun go, and they know he's like how important he is to the defense. They know how to keep their core players around. All the offensive core players are stuck around. They're under contract until 2027 or what. So they'll be able to structure these things and kind of figure it out moving forward. So if they have to pay all these guys, that'll be a great problem to have. So they're in a great position. And like you said, what they're doing now is what's going to be really effective, is because now they're taking these chances on younger guys where now you can roll them in, either trade chips at the deadline or compensatory picks the following year. They just have a great system moving forward and kind of have set the foundation to build on this thing, regardless of who they have to pay moving forward.
It's a fantastic situation to be in. Before I get to these super chats real quick, by the way, I was going to bring this up because we were looking back, of course, at the draft picks. And Anthony, you mentioned where, certainly the first 3 rounds. And I've gotten this brought up a couple different times. And I mean, I don't know what the numbers exactly say. I'm sure someone's done a deep dive on it. There's probably stats out there that you can find to say, what percentage do people hit on rounds 4 through 7, right? Like, but whatever. I don't care about that one as much because I think that the general consensus is that is more of a completely luck of the draw, a crapshoot. Every once in a while, sure, you can go, oh, I knew that player, but realistically, 4 through 7, a little bit less than you're looking at. And even early, even 1 through 3 is still kind of a guessing game, but you hopefully have a little bit better idea on players. But if you're looking at the last several drafts, so, first 3 picks, and you could just go back in order here. So 2024, first 3 picks, Quinyon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean, Jalyx Hunt. I think we would all agree those are absolutely 3 massive check marks. Okay, so there's 1. Now we go down to the previous draft, 2023. Jalen Carter, Nolan Smith, and then we can count both of them because the 3rd round picks, but Tyler Steen and Sidney Brown. Now, you have some maybe on Tyler Steen and Sidney Brown. Sidney Brown started to look fairly decent, got the ACL injury, recovering, returning. Sometimes it takes a while for a player to get full strength. He obviously didn't have a starting role, too, in Fangio's defense, so maybe he's the guy. Same thing for Tyler Steen. But the argument also could be, like, Steen had the job, and a lot of people were thinking it was, like, very certain he was going to be the right guard until he got injured, and then you're going, okay, well, we need to try out some other guys, and then Mekhi Becton just turned out to be absolute monster. And so, well, we're not changing that. Like if he can do it, then fine, let's leave him at right guard. But I don't think that's even a case to be made to say, oh well, that's a miss, right? Because we still have plenty of time. I don't think you can make the case for either of those guys.
Yeah, and I think this year especially is going to be telling for both of them because it seems like Tower Steen's the early favorite for the right guard spot heading into the season, and I feel like you can't discount like how he performed. I know he had a couple more starts at left guard compared to right guard last season, but I talked about how he started against the Bengals. Besides the Week 18 kind of meaningless game, but he started against the Bengals in Week 8, I believe it was. They won. They put up a ton of points, ton of yards. He only allowed one pressure, and then when he played left guard, obviously he had to start in the NFC Championship game, and he played a bunch of snaps. They put up 55 points. So clearly he's kind of held his own. I know there was that rookie season when he had to come in against the Cowboys. It wasn't the prettiest showing, but since then he's learned, and I feel like you have to give him the upper hand moving into this year as the starting right guard. And then Sidney Brown's another guy, kind of like the Jalyx Hunt of the year before, where a guy I really liked before the draft, then he landed in Philadelphia. Obviously, they kind of had a shaky safety situation. He shined a little bit towards the end, unfortunately got hurt, and that kind of put him behind everybody else going into this season. I tweeted about that as well, where a lot of people were like, well, how he was utilized and Tristan McCollum playing over him kind of said everything that Vic Fangio thinks about him, but he was kind of injured, didn't get any OTAs, any training camp, any preseason, couldn't even practice until October, and then he finally got caught up, and by that point he was basically a special teams ace. So I'm really excited to see what he can kind of do with a full offseason under Vic Fangio and see if he could really win that starting job. I mean, ideally, I think they add either a free agent or a safety early in the draft where Sidney Brown isn't kind of forced to do that role, but we'll see what happens.
We will get into that too, because I was going to ask you, but here in just a second, as far as the safety and all that goes. What I will mention, because Real Take with G says, wait, Moro Ojomo was a 7th round pick. Wow, did we get our Tom Brady on the line? I think some people will forget about that Moro Ojomo was a 7th round pick, because you see the production and you're like, yeah, he was a couple drafts ago. So maybe the thought is like, oh, 5th round pick, somewhere around there. 7th round pick, it's
Jordan Mailata, 7th round pick.
Of course, Jordan Mailata.
Blankenship, undrafted.
There we go. Hey, and you look at the 2023 draft. I'm just saying, the jury's still out, sure, but the jury's still out on Keely Ringo, Sidney Brown, Tyler Steen, even perhaps. Tanner Mekhi, 6th round pick. I mean, that's your QB2. I think that's a pretty solid. I've gotten a few people like, DTR is going to be the QB, but I mean, Tanner's got QB2 it's his job to lose. We'll just say that. So that and Moro Ojomo. But then continuing with this game that we're playing, moving down to 2022, you got Jordan Davis, Cam Jurgens, and Nakobe Dean.
Pretty good, right? And I
like
feel like
a
it's
year
also
ago, we would have said Nakobe Dean was a miss.
Yeah,
but
that's exactly what I was going to say. I feel because even Nolan Smith, like first year, people are like, oh, we don't know. And then like even Cam Jurgens, like, oh, he didn't play. Like, what is he going to do? And then so I feel like these last 3 drafts in particular, even Jordan Davis, where people are like, oh, he can't rush the passer. And then he got back-to-back sacks in the 2 biggest games for the Eagles, like in the last 2 years. So, I mean, you got to just give these guys time. These guys are 21, 22, 23 years old. It's just like judging them after one season, especially if they didn't really have a role or barely played, I feel like you got to give them more time. And these 3 drafts are really proof of that too.
Yes. I mean, there's every single one. And we'll go down to the next one. Same case, same story. Sorry. Frank from Philly, I appreciate you calling me out. You guys hold me accountable. Why did he not spell? Okay, Real Talk with G was that previous comment. It's not spelled that way. It's just a lowercase L, but there's no A. Why is it not Real Talk with G? Like actually just spell out talk. Okay, I'll say it from now on. Real Talk with G. My bad, bro. It was previously Fitness Warrior, and he changed his username, but I thought I was nailing it, and that was way off. All right, anyway, so maybe I'm not nailing it, but Howie did for another draft. So we go down here. Devontae Smith, Landon Dickerson, Milton Williams. Bang, bang, bang. I mean, 3 guys. You win a Super Bowl with Milton Williams. He goes somewhere else, and you recoup a 3rd-round draft pick. I mean, that is almost like a 4-year player rental for free to then recoup the pick too. That's like you're getting the incredible value into the compensatory pick because they don't sign him back and he goes to the Patriots. But Milton Williams there, 3rd round, all those guys.
Yeah, I mean, you couldn't have asked for a better situation as far as like obviously you would have liked to retain that guy, but $26 million when you have to pay Jalen Carter like $26 million per year. That's just not going to happen. So the best possible scenario is literally getting the same pick you use for a guy 4 years later. Is just like, it's perfect. And I see some people saying Cooper didn't come off an ACL. I wasn't talking about Cooper DeJean. I was talking about Sidney Brown
Right. Yes.
tearing his ACL. So I just want to correct those people if that's what they're talking about.
I got you, but yeah, I see that now too. So I don't know where we got confused on that. Maybe I might have had the wrong draft pulled up as we were still talking about that. So once again, that would have been my fault. But then, so this would be the first one, 2020. But like I was saying, you go back for the past 4 drafts, and he's absolutely automatic. The first one, Jalen Reagor, all right. But then there's Jalen Hurts.
That second one's pretty good though.
That's not too bad. And then Davion Taylor, Kayvon Wallace, those are 4th round, but still Jack Driscoll. So anyway, the exercise is over. We're only going back 4 years. We're not going back 5. But no, I mean, all things considered, it is a pretty ridiculous run that Howie has been on. But he's backed it up, as we've seen, year after year for the last 4 years. Now, could it slide? Sure. You could be like, oh well, maybe he's due. Maybe he's going to have a bad draft, so we look at it. But it's like he's found a different formula. He's talked about it, the way they look at players, the way they interview players. Although it is strange, they're not seeming to give as many top 30 visit info. Did you kind of break the system there? I think you were tweeting it out too often.
I think I tweeted that a little bit prematurely because I did go back to kind of try and see when other reports were coming out. So I'll probably tweet this tomorrow or whatever. But it seemed like a lot of you don't usually hear about the top 30 visits at the combine, which we heard about Anthony Belton, who's the only one that kind of put that out there, which he probably shouldn't have. The team's probably not crazy about that, I'm assuming. But usually it seems like right around the 23rd, 24th, 25th of March is when you start hearing about the reported top 30 visits, especially from like the guys like Jordan Schultz, Ian Rappaport. That's kind of when the national reporters kind of shift from free agency mode to kind of like hyping up the draft and building up these guys' stock. Because a lot of that is a lot of like work for agents where they're like, my guy has 9 visits. He's got such a busy schedule. Like he's going to be a 2nd round pick. Like, so that's where you're going to start hearing a lot more of these. And then obviously when the players themselves now, thanks to social media, a lot of them will post Instagram stories like, oh, tagging themselves in Philadelphia or like a picture of the Eagles auditorium or whatever like that. So that's when you'll kind of get a lot of leaks that way too. So yeah, I think I said that a little bit too early. Usually we do hear about like 2 or 3 by now. We only have 1 this year, but hopefully I think we knew about like 24 or 25 by the time of the actual draft last season. So hopefully it's around that amount this year.
Okay, that's good to know. I was a little bit concerned myself. Although winning the Super Bowl in a strange way has thrown off like all the timing, because last year was like we had so much just, I guess, time to kill, quite frankly. So it's like, all right, hey, who are we going to draft? Because there's nothing else beyond that. So it's changed a little bit, but in a week or so, hopefully we get some more info.
We haven't even gotten the official coaching staff yet, so that's something else we got to wait for.
Still wait for those announcements. Yeah, they're taking their sweet time, which is fine, I suppose. All right, Patrick Florescio. I'm probably not saying that correctly, but Patrick, appreciate the 10. I don't think everyone realizes how electrifying our defensive environment is going to be. All of those guys are going to be competing for their respective spots, and we're going to see the best. Go effing Birds. Go Birds, baby. It's the environment, the coaching, the squad, the Philly Dogs, what was I'm trying to remember back whenever, I think it was Jalen Carter, right? Whenever Jalen Carter and Nolan Smith got drafted, I could be wrong. I believe it was Jalen Carter who in his like first press conference or maybe second one at his first training camp was something to the effect of like, these practices, like they're not as difficult as our Georgia ones. Now, that was before Vic Fangio, so we've changed a little bit, but still, like to go and say there's an NFL practice that is easier than what they expected at Georgia. It's kind of shifted the model, shifted the mindset to say, hey, we're going to put the work in, and it's going to be different. So you got that combined with Fangio, those guys, iron sharpens iron. It's a positive thing. We will just say that.
Yeah, I just love that Jalyx Hunt quote when he was talking about how they're meeting after the Super Bowl, and it was kind of like,
oh my god,
the offense, like whatever, like they went over their thing, no big deal, and then Vic Fangio was like, all right, defense, stay back. We gave up 20 points at the end or whatever it was. He was just like, that can't happen. It's just like, really, you just won the Super Bowl, but that just shows you like his kind of old school mentality where like it's just never enough. And even though he finally got over that cliff and won a Super Bowl, he still wants to kind of set the bar high and know these guys aren't just going to coast in the offseason. He wants them to come back focused and ready to do it again.
Yeah, and he doesn't care about any parade, right? You could give that little parade prep, but we're gonna go in there and get our corrections, guys. So it's for those of you that are still gonna be there, we're calling you out. You're gonna make sure and hear it. But I think at the end of the day, it just goes to show also that it takes a certain player to play in Philly. It takes a certain player to play for Vic Fangio. And a lot of those are not located in Miami. We'll just leave it at that. Now, Patrick Johnson has been brought back, and we've talked about a lot of these other pass rushers. I've seen mixed reviews or mixed feelings on that. Some people going like, oh my gosh, this is one of the best signings so far. Similar, just to bring him back. I think that people do remember, at least my first thought of like, oh, Patrick Johnson, like was the strip sack in the preseason to end up winning the game or give Jake Elliott another shot at redemption and then taking control there. But do you think that there's a role to be had? Is it a similar story as we've seen in the past with Patrick Johnson, or how much of a deal is it there?
I mean, ideally, I feel like if he does make the roster, it would just kind of be like a special teams guy because I feel like that's kind of where he excelled in the past when he did make the roster. But he did, like you said, kind of showcase some of that pass rushing like ability that he had in preseason. And that's why a lot of people did have him making the final 53-man roster like this season. So the fact that he ended up being waived and was claimed by the Giants, and some people were upset. It was kind of like this year's version or this past season's version of Christian Ellis when they were forced to waive him and then he got poached. I don't think, like I said, ideally, I don't think he's even in your top 4 edge rushers. I feel like right now, if they moved on from Bryce Huff, then maybe Patrick Johnson would be your 5th guy, and he would play like in case of an injury, and then he would be like a special teams ace. But I feel like, especially after these last 2 signings of Josh Uche and Azeez Ojulari, I feel like he's got kind of an uphill battle to make the final roster, but you can't have enough help on the edge, and I really like the way that they've built that room overall, because now it's like, even if you move on from Bryce Huff, you have 5 solid players before even going into the draft and undrafted free, like all that stuff. So you have a great core that's going to be there moving forward. And now you can kind of have all these different options. And I know the PHLY, Zach Berman, Bo Wolf, they kind of say how Howie Roseman likes to like draft proof the roster, where he doesn't want to feel like obligated to pick a certain position because they're weak. And he's kind of able to just take the best player available or whoever they think is the best for that spot. So I'm kind of excited to see. Obviously, I'm sure we'll talk about a couple more spots that aren't necessarily draft proof just yet. So we'll see what they do before the draft.
Yes, it is probably better case than not to, as you say, draft proof. Make sure you can take the best available instead of, we see potential other teams of just drafting the position they need instead of the player that's available. And we don't hate it because, then that means all of a sudden that you got Jalen Carter that falls to you. You got Nolan Smith that falls to you. You got Quinell Mitchell that falls to you. You got Cooper DeJean that falls to you. There's a lot of these scenarios. And when we look into the draft, maybe a safety. As of today, I think that would be the clear-cut consensus if I were to poll the audience and go, what position do we want to fall to us in the draft? Probably most people are going to say, or at least the majority are going to say safety at 32. Or maybe you trade up a couple selections because Howie has a ton of draft picks. I will say 5 from Garrett here, and I'm glad that he brought this up because this is a very exciting situation and a conversation. Maybe some people don't appreciate it. I know you will. Says, I don't know the fullback situation, but Jordan Mailata must have a brother down under, which we can train up. But we do have a fullback. We have an official fullback.
Yes.
Mr. Ben Van Sumeren. He is not a linebacker anymore, ladies and gentlemen. He is a straight up fullback. How about that?
Yeah, I mean, I texted you when I feel like we both noticed at the same time. And for some reason, I think it's just going back to old school football when the fullback had the big neck roll and they were just ramming into people. We got a little bit of a glimpse of it before Ben Sumeren obviously got hurt last season. So I'm glad that he kind of made that conversion, and we'll see if he plays any linebacker now or if he's just strictly going to stick on the offense, because he does he's definitely a special teams core player there. And he did kind of look good at linebacker during preseason action. So I don't know if he's going to be a Travis Hunter in a way where he's kind of playing all 3 phases of football. But regardless, also, it's just worth noting that both Harrison Bryant and Kylen Granson, the two tight ends that they signed, did kind of play a little bit of fullback at times in both college and in the NFL. So they kind of have a little bit of a rotation and different options there as far as what they can do. So it seems like that might be a little bit more of an emphasis moving forward as far as different looks when they're able to run the ball or even pass out of those formations too.
It will be nice if BVS changes the number, though. Then we don't have to keep on, reporting as
Yes.
eligible every single
Well, he'll
play
have
and
to change it now
possession.
that he's a fullback. He can't wear
Right, right. That's
57
true. That's a
anymore.
good point. Yeah, so he's going to have to, and then therefore he won't have that problem. So I will say also for people that are not as familiar, so Kyle Granson, Harrison Bryant, the two tight ends that get signed. I included it in a video a couple of videos ago. You posted a tweet about it as well for the different positions that Harrison Bryant has played and kind of taking some runs or quarterback sneaks and all that. The ability that they have to do, I think you termed it, or the phrase that you used was the super tush push.
Yes.
But you could have Harrison Bryant there. You could somehow, get your fullback, Ben Van Sumeren, AJ Dillon, you Quadzilla now, so you throw him in there in the mix. You got so many different guys that could run this thing. Now you're tried and true is, of course, Jalen Hurts and Saquon, and assuming Dallas Goedert is here, we'll see. But the flexibility and the potential for creative plays with all those guys is pretty ridiculous. We'll just say that. You definitely have a lot of options, and the guys who can certainly squat the most in the room as well.
Yeah, because if you look back at Harrison Bryant in Cleveland, I think he had 6 carries where he would kind of they would break the huddle, and then all of a sudden he would just go under center and take the ball and sneak it. But then they did that throughout, sporadically throughout the season. And then sure enough, late in the season in a short yardage situation, they did the same thing, but then he pitched it out to Kareem Hunt for a walk-in touchdown. So it just kind of showed the different ways that they can kind of do things. And I think it's going to be fun to see. I don't know how much or how crazy they're going to get, because like you said, it's just such a proven and effective play. I feel like if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But I think it is a little interesting that all these guys kind of have a little bit of experience being utilized in these short yardage situations and different looks. Obviously, AJ Dillon's a monstrous running back. He makes me think of Brandon Jacobs back in the day for the Giants, because I remember going to Giants training camp as a kid. Sorry, I was forced to go as a child, but that guy's hand was ridiculous compared to my 9-year-old hand at the time, and he was 6'3", 260, whatever he was. So AJ Dillon kind of brings me back memories of that, and it's going to be fun if he's healthy to see what he can do in the backfield.
Do you, before I get to Chris's super chat here real quickly, because you mentioned AJ Dillon, are you, I guess, where do you fall? Because I'm kind of I'm okay with it. I'm not over the moon about the AJ Dillon, but just because I think that Will Shipley could still be RB2. But I'm also not he's just going to be Rashad Penny. I've heard those takes, seen it. I'm not thinking AJ Dillon's a Rashad Penny. So probably in between there for me, but what would you say for AJ Dillon expectations where you're at?
I would actually confidently say that Will Shipley's RB2. I don't think AJ Dillon's going to really challenge him there, because I know he's good in pass protection and whatnot, but I just feel like Will Shipley's a much more explosive runner, and we kind of saw what he can do late in the season. Obviously, he had that run where he just fell a little bit short, but he broke out. So I think ideally,
he needs to just run full speed.
Yeah,
he could have had that if he hadn't just all right, I'm going to make sure I don't fumble. But
he got a little scared. He pressed both triggers or whatever it is in Madden to
just cover up the football. Yeah,
and it slowed him down. But hey, I can't blame him, because if he would have fumbled that ball, Jamal Singleton would have ripped into him. So he saw his chance and he didn't want to mess it up. So, but I think he's going to have a lot more chances moving forward. And if you kind of look at the way Kenneth Gainwell played and the way I think they're going to play very similar roles, where they're the RB2, but they do they're basically a special teams ace in a lot of regards, because we saw Will Shipley make a couple huge tackles and force fumble, whatever. So I think he's going to have a crucial role. And I feel like AJ Dillon's going to kind of be, if Saquon Barkley gets hurt, or if it's a game that's out of hand where they can kind of just take Saquon Barkley out and AJ Dillon can kind of be your early down guy, and then they could work Will Shipley off that way. But ideally, I think Will Shipley's going to be their RB2.
Okay. All right. That's definitely the way that I was leaning. So interesting to hear and get that take, which there's some that think, AJ Dillon could be that guy. There's others. Tyler Wallace says, I won't lie, I really hate the AJ Dillon signing. I'm upset we probably won't draft a running back. Do you think that means we don't draft a running back, though, even with the AJ Dillon?
I don't know, because they didn't announce Avery Williams, right, as a running back or a cornerback. Yeah, they just said returner. So that was a little weird too. So they still kind of could use a fourth running back if they're going to carry one. But at the same time, I don't know if AJ Dillon's roster spot is guaranteed because he needs to prove that he's healthy. And we haven't really got a ton of specifics. Have you seen any details about his contract? I don't think
I have not.
I've
No,
seen anything. So that's probably means there's little to no guaranteed money, because if there was, they would want to get that out early. So he might just be trying to prove that he's healthy, and he's not even a lock to make the final roster. So, especially in a stacked running back class, I know they've met with a couple that I've listed in my tracker as far as the running backs. And Monangai from the Rutgers is going to be at their local pro day. He mentioned that at Rutgers pro day. He's going to be at the Eagles local pro day. So he's one of those like day 3 guys that's going to be a kind of a high ceiling guy in the NFL if he lands in the right spot. So I think they could take a late flyer on a player, but I don't know. We'll see what happens.
Anish says, draft interview questions. Can you tush push? Can you block? Screen? If yes, then okay, you're on our draft board. So
there you
go. pretty obvious and straightforward. That's all it takes. Chris, though, with a 5, said thoughts on us having 7 players with $20 million plus average annual salary when not only 2 teams have 5, or when only 2 teams have 5. Clearly, this is why we can't sign a lot of big money free agents. I guess thoughts on just having 7 players with a 20 million average. I mean, I like Howie is good at locking up good. I don't know. Like, it's like a good problem to have. You have a lot of good players, so Howie's going to make sure you lock up your good players for the future, and then yet try to keep winning from the draft like you're doing on the defensive side, certainly, but really on both. I'm okay with it. It's just you have to pick your poison somewhere. Like, you have to go one direction. You either say, okay, we pay our guys, or we let them walk, and then you perhaps see the guys perform really well in a different situation or a different city. So I don't know, it just comes with the territory, I suppose.
I feel like you also have to kind of dive a little deeper into those numbers, because because the guy's average annual value is $20 million, his cap hit, the way the Eagles do things, could only be $7 million
for sure.
or $8 million, because and I tweeted about it. That just shows how the importance of an owner like Jeffrey Lurie, where he's willing to kind of front the cash with these big signing bonuses that allow them to use the void years to kind of spread things out and make it to where these guys that are really, it seems like they're making 20 million plus per year, they're not really making that as far as the cap. And that allows Howie Roseman to get a lot more creative with the structure of contracts. Like I mentioned, the void years and whatnot. So yeah, it says that they have 7 players of that amount, but the way that they're able to manipulate the cap and kind of do things that way makes it kind of a lot different than a lot of other owners around the league that are kind of not willing to put that money up front and pay these guys. Whereas, yeah, they had to allow Milton Williams and Joshua to leave, but at the same time, there's a reason they have Moro Ojomo and Jalyx Hunt waiting in the wings to kind of take over for them. So this is all strategically done. People are acting like the Eagles are the first team to kind of play the compensatory pick game, but the Ravens are doing it this offseason. They've done it for years, and we've seen the success they've had in the draft as well. So this isn't the first team to do so. It's just the Eagles are able to do it while also paying these guys a ton of money as well.
It's a win-win. I will say that the other part to it, and we've mentioned this a number of different times, but the risk that the Eagles are taking, but it's a calculated risk, and it's glorious because Philly is able and willing to do this. Shout out to Jeffrey Lurie, like you mentioned, also him being able and willing to pay the cash forward, lots of signing bonuses. Howie Roseman could not do his job or not manipulate it without the willingness from Jeffrey Lurie's side, but it is slightly risky. Now, the NFL has been, an absolutely successful machine and just churned along, and the salary cap and the growth, the revenue, all that has been astronomical, and it just probably is going to continue to do that. But it's almost like every single time that you look at a contract that gets done in the offseason, you say, hey, you signed so-and-so to a 3-year deal, right? But if, let's say, for example, the salary cap is 280, something like that for the salary cap, they're basically, instead of while the vast majority of the teams are operating under the 280 is the number, the Eagles are operating under, it's going to grow about another 20 next year and another 20 the next year and another 20 the following year. So our number that we're looking at is about 340. And that is how they just continue to sign, because they know that the salary cap should, again, it's a risk, but it should continue to grow at that rate. And every single time it does, they're like, Every team's like their bill is coming, their bill is due. Just wait. They're not going to be able to sign these guys. They're not going to be able to make these moves. And yet every single offseason, they're able to do that because of the calculated risk that they take and say, no, we'll get extra room. We're gonna structure this. The salary cap's not going to hit. Got the void years. Push things back, and then you continue to restructure. And you continue to do the same cycle and repeat itself. And it's masterful. The only way is if you had a little bit of difficulties on the COVID year. If you have a decline, then all of a sudden you might be looking at it going, yikes, okay, this is dangerous. But as long as it's humming right along, they're playing a game that few teams, not none, but few teams are choosing to do, and it's the reason that Howie's just masterful at the cap and doesn't have near those cap hits like other teams do.
And it's funny because usually it seems like at the end of every season, obviously you can whatever existing or open cap space you have, they're able to roll that into the following year. And it seems like no matter what moves Howie Roseman does, somehow the Eagles have between 15 to 25 million or so in cap space that they're just we're just going to take this with us to next year and add that on top. So
fantastic.
It's just everything just like you said, they look so far ahead, not only just with draft picks, but the way they do these. I remember a couple of years ago when people started figuring out what void years were, they were like, wait, you can do this? What is this? And sure enough, there were other teams that were like, yeah, but like you said, they're just kicking the can down the road. They're going to have to blow it up one year. And it's just 5-6 years later, and we're just what? They haven't blown it up? They're actually signing more players to big contracts. So what are you talking about?
You got a couple players retiring even, and they're still doing it. So they must have been doing something right. Don't figure it out. Shout out to Dallas and other franchises who are stuck in the Stone Ages. But just that's fine. Just keep doing your thing. Don't follow Philly in that standpoint. But I will say you brought up Avery Williams, so we do have to bring up him because he's a Swiss Army knife and a very interesting piece to the Eagles. I thought it was fascinating. I think maybe you pointed out whenever they had the tweet that they got announced for the signing, but to officially introduce Avery Williams as kick returner / punt returner, that doesn't happen all the time, but I guess expectations there for Avery Williams. Does it mean anything for Cooper DeJean, others on the roster, or even, I guess, like a Britton Covey, for instance, who's not on the roster?
Well, once again, I don't know if it's a guy that's necessarily a lock to make the roster, but I think it is kind of a hint that maybe they are going to move on from a guy like Britton Covey, because despite being in the league for a longer amount of time, Williams is actually younger than Britton Covey, because Britton Covey was such an older prospect coming into the league. But I think they just probably want somebody that can stay healthy, and that's not going to – I mean, he missed the entire season. I think he tore his ACL, but he's been healthy outside of that. So obviously Britton Covey's situation last season was a little weird, where he was on IR, then he was it seemed like he was going to come back full practice, but then he was out every week, then he was placed back on IR. It's what's going on? And then obviously he's already a smaller guy, so the fact that now he's dealing with a neck injury where he's a punt returner, where he is going to take some hard hits at times, because it's just the natural part of that, playing that position. So I think now this gives them an opportunity where they have an experienced returner. And like I said, I don't even remember the last time they've had a player that was just strictly designated as a returner, on the actual roster, because even Britton Covey was a wide receiver on the roster. He was their primary returner for punts, but nobody was ever designated that I can remember as just a return specialist. So it'll be interesting to see if he actually makes the final roster, or if they're just going to try and use somebody else at a different position to kind of serve both roles. But hopefully it means that Cooper DeJean can kind of just play cornerback, and he's a phenomenal punt returner. Please. He has the ability to break one open and get a big return, but you just don't want to risk somebody that's so important to the defense in that role. Just put somebody else back there, fair catch it every time, and we don't have to worry about losing a star cornerback on a punt return.
Yes, we do not want that. Anything at all. We trust you, Coop. We trust if you had to do it, you absolutely could. But like you're talking about there, the fact that he is you're talking about the best slot corner in the NFL, one of the most important positions out there, especially in today's NFL. It's just not worth it to me. You could go get somebody else. Hopefully that's Avery Williams. Maybe it's somebody else, but I am perfectly fine with that. Real quick, shout out to J.C. Kirk. Literally have to be up for work in 3 hours, but wanted to say, hey, go Birds. And go Birds before I go to bed. There we go. Appreciate that. Josh B. also mentioning John McMullen said that Covey had some couldn't grip the ball problems with that neck injury. So that would be extremely significant, of course.
Seems kind of important, right?
I suppose, yeah.
I mean, I'm not laughing at his injury, but obviously,
yeah. But it's just always Not saying that it was fake or any, but it is always a little bit strange whenever, as we say, like, okay, Covey's getting in full practices, but then he was out, and then he goes to the IR, and then they activate him again. So you're thinking, okay, he's good, and he's still getting in full practices, but he's out. So maybe, look, maybe it was like, okay, he's good, then all of a sudden he can't grip the ball one day, and then he's okay, and so they're just back and forth and don't know. I mean, we've seen other guys with neck injuries. Heck, AJ Dillon missed all of last season with a neck injury and trying to, get right and all that. So it's serious. But I was halfway like, okay, is this just roster management? Is this a way to figure out how to keep Britton Covey? Is this a legit injury? But the fact that it doesn't look like they're going to be bringing back Britton Covey because nothing's been reached at the moment. You have to wonder, is it perhaps worse than they thought, or just like, hey, make sure you're 100% right, good to go before we think about bringing you back, and we'll see. But got to move forward, get Avery Williams. One here with the 5, and I'll get this one correct this time. Real Talk with G with the 5. I'm very curious on why the new assistant to the head coach, Cole Peterson, is not talked about more. I think this is a low-key great hiring.
Because he's the assistant to the head coach, and we don't really know like what his role is going to be. I think it's more so, I think them once again trying to reload kind of that pipeline as far as like maybe like a guy that potentially replaced the assistant quarterback coach or whatever. Like you just like, it's just like you want to, if you lose this guy, you want to have somebody already in house to kind of potentially fill that void. So this is just their way of kind of doing that, I guess.
And there's maybe not a limit to how many assistants or helpers or sitters that Nick Sirianni could have. So, sure. Yeah, it's a good one. But no, I'm with you. Like, I don't know how much, like, he's got a good story. He's set some records or what, like the youth, and the jobs that he's been able to get or the roles that he's had previously and all that. So sure, I'm sure it's a great signing. It's a good one. But as you're talking about it, like, how much are you really expecting from him? Like, what all is he going to do to drastically shift things, help out the Eagles? Where he's going to change it. I don't know. Like, totally a guess.
I just love how creative they get, like with the coaching titles, because remember, like when they wanted to give Patullo that bump, but they weren't making him offensive coordinator. Like, oh, you're associate head coach, and now Jamal Singleton was already the assistant head coach or whatever. Like. They're just like, now it's the assistant to the head coach. Just like, what are we doing here? How many? Maybe me and you can get jobs in there.
Levels.
Somehow.
We probably could.
To the assistant to the dog walker.
It would yeah, exactly. It'd be the associate assistant to the head coach. That's what it would be. But I'm perfectly willing. If anybody from the Eagles organization is watching, and you're looking to hire, me and Anthony would gladly become associate to the assistant head coach.
We'll make it work. I'll call people up, season ticket holders, whatever you need me to do. That's how Howie Roseman got his start, right? Something like that.
Yeah, so. Yeah. You got to get started somewhere. So, no, I could certainly appreciate the personnel and however they want to scheme it to, like you say, have guys ready to backfill, guys that can fill in different positions. Keep the pipeline turning, because it works the same way as we've seen with not only players but the coaching and assistants. So, not a bad place to be in, but yeah, just one that. Who knows exactly where he's going to be, and the role that he plays. Justin Reed, I did want to mention too, as we're getting closer to the hour, and I do need to wrap it up with the family. And yeah, we're good. Okay. No, we're okay for now. We're good. But I was going to mention Justin Reed because we had talked about safety a little bit earlier, and for those people wondering, like, is Howie going to make a move? What are they going to go after? Justin Reed did say that it was a close call with the Eagles. We knew that there was rumored reports of the Eagles being potentials, but then whenever he was on Up and Adams, he had shared that that was a possibility. Obviously, the financial aspect of it was the kicker for New Orleans. I mean, I know that he said like, yeah, we could do this thing in New Orleans, but I mean, come on, realistically, the first thing was like, okay, I'm getting paid more
the truth.
By the Saints, and that's fair. You know what? Hey, if I've already won a championship, I might consider also being like, I'm going to get paid. I'm going to go wherever the highest bidder is. Some people wouldn't, which is totally fine. So, hey, you know what? You go to Philly if you want to win. But he did not. But I still think, like we've talked about these last couple of days, it signifies that the Eagles were and are interested in a safety. C.J. Gardner-Johnson trade him away, and then 2 hours later, they're trying to sign Justin Reed. So just Julian Blackmon is still on the market. You got Justin Simmons still on the market. You've got other options in the draft too, but like we talked about, draft proofing the roster. Where are you as of today? Do you feel like it's more likely that they sign someone before the draft? And I guess, and the second part of that question, is it a bigger name sign like a Julian Black, like a Justin Simmons, or is it just kind of your, somebody, I'll throw out another Justin for you, but like a Justin Evans-esque type of acquisition?
It's funny because if you would have asked me a couple of days ago, I never would have thought that Azeez Ojulari was possible, right? So like now looking at the
True.
safety position, Julian Blackmon is someone that I talked about as far as like he was in Indianapolis in 2020 when Nick Sirianni, Kevin Patullo, Jason Michael, like those guys were there. Obviously, they weren't defensive coaches, but they were there. They got to see him practice, see him play, obviously, on game day for a full season. So I think he makes the most sense as far as like from an age standpoint. He's only 26. He fits in like with the timeline of the rest of this defense. And now it seems like the longer he sits out there, it feels like maybe he's not going to get the contract. Like I think he was projected to get like a 3-year, $21 million deal or something like that. I think PFF had him at. But now, what if you can get him for like an Azeez Ojulari type deal where it's a 1 year? You could say like, hey, listen, look what C.J. Gardner-Johnson did, and like how he turned it around, got the deal with the Lions, and then whatever. Like now he's got a 3-year deal back signing with us. So like maybe they view that like, hey, you could play that role. You can get 5-6 interceptions, a couple of sacks, rack up tackles, and now you could enter free agency next season and really get that multi-year contract. So I think maybe now it's a little bit more of an enticing landing spot for him. Obviously, that starting spot is wide open because they'd say, hey, listen, your competition is Sidney Brown, who really hasn't done much in Philadelphia, although like I still think he has a lot of potential, but he's not proven anything really. And then Luis Seen obviously is not having show like former first round pick, sure, but hasn't really done anything in the NFL. So if that's your competition, Julian Blackmon has to feel confident coming into Philadelphia. So even if it's like an incentive, like a highly incentivized contract where it's say 3-4 million guarantee, because he only signed for I believe it was 3 million guaranteed last offseason coming off an injury with the Colts. I think it
Yeah.
was worth up to like 7 million or something like that. So I don't know if he hit those incentives or not. He did play, he stayed healthy. So probably looking for a bigger payday, but I think I would target him over a guy like Justin Simmons. But like you said with the draft, if they could somehow move up a little bit and get a Malachi Starks or Nicky Manwari, those two obviously are kind of the big fish at safety, but I think they might be a little bit too far out of their range. Maybe they reach whatever for a guy like Xavier Watts out of Notre Dame, but he's another kind of perfect fit in Vic Fangio's defense. So they're going to have options. It's just a matter of what they want to do.
If I'm looking at this as a, again, what free agent wouldn't want to play in Philly? But if I'm looking at this from specifically the safety role and somebody to come in to fill that void, like a Justin Simmons, like a Julian Blackmon, those are kind of the big two. But even, someone else beyond that the Eagles potentially might want to bring in beforehand, like it's the perfect scenario because like you're laying it out there, even if they have to take a little bit more of a risky deal and they're saying, hey, it's going to be a 1 year, prove it, you do well, you're going to sign somewhere else. Like you're talking about a squad that you're coming into that was the number one defense last year. Even if they backslide a little bit, I mean, how far are we talking about with this defense? Plus, as a safety, you're telling me I get to have corners in Quinyon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean in the slot, and then could be a guy in the draft, could be Keely Ringo, but like you got some solid secondary players in front of you as well. You could just be average at your safety role. I mean, look, not to take anything away from C.J. Gardner-Johnson, but there's at least 2 or 3 interceptions that I can think of right now that, he got them, but like that didn't necessarily wasn't going to be the one to get that. Like Q could have made the interception. There were other guys in those opportunities. That's fine that he was in the space to make the play. Again, not to take anything away, but if you're a safety, having good corner play obviously can help you help make you look better. So why not? You take the 1 year deal, you prove it, you get your money elsewhere, or heck, maybe the Eagles re-sign. He doesn't feel likely, but still, worst case scenario, there you get some more compensation and go elsewhere.
Yeah, the only thing that the Eagles have to kind of factor in, which might be why they moved on from C.J. Gardner-Johnson, or might be why they haven't signed anybody to like a multi-year deal yet, is that Reed Blankenship is heading into a contract year. So if they and this is kind of an inside scoop just for you, I haven't even told you about this, but as far as a couple of days ago, Reed Blankenship has not had any conversations with the Eagles as far as an extension. So that's not something that was talked about yet either. So I don't know if they're just
Okay.
taking it after that the source told me that maybe after the draft they'll talk and kind of have those conversations. But as of right now, they haven't had any conversations in that regard. So we'll see what happens after the draft or if they sign somebody in free agency. But that's kind of, we've seen Howie Roseman kind of take a cautious approach as far as paying guys during the season and not necessarily wanting to like disrespect one guy by paying another one. So maybe the Eagles kind of thought like, hey, if we restructured CJ Gardner-Johnson's contract or extended him and didn't give Reed a contract who's kind of worked his way up in Philadelphia, that would kind of ruffle feathers. But that's why, like I said, kind of signing Julian Blackmon to a 1-year deal, matching up with Reed Blankenship, and then you can kind of either re-sign both or re-sign whoever has the better season. That might be a better situation for them in 2025.
There we go. The man himself dropping some news. Nothing major, but still, hey, some inside sources there, which is, again, if you're not, you should already be doing this. But if you're not, make sure to go follow Anthony DiBona at DiBona NFL on Twitter or X, whatever we call it. I always still refer to it as Twitter. It'll probably never change. I don't know. Just so stuck.
Whenever I say X, people are like, it's called Twitter. So I'm just like, okay, it's Twitter.
Yeah, I feel like I can't win because then I'll say Twitter and people are like, it's X. It's been X for a long time now. So I don't know. Either way, Real Talk with G, 10 more Philly Special Show memberships gifted. Heck yeah. Appreciate that, bro. Congrats to T-Bell, T. Grant, Michael Hardy, Mac, Anil, Dexter, Thomas, Jameer, Jameer? Maybe it's Jameer. It smells like Jameer, Jamier, Jameer.
We need to have a spelling contest, like after free agency, after the draft.
That'd be rough. That'd be brutal. Tiffany and Anthony, congratulations, everybody. I got the majority of those pronunciations correct, so we're doing good. Chris with a 5 says, if we are being optimistic, how many future Hall of Fame players could be on the roster today? As of today, so does BG count? He announced his retirement. Is he officially done now already? Does he count? That's a weird. I don't know. Do we count that one?
Well, I mean, people might hate me for this, but I don't think he's a Hall of Famer.
Well, but people, you know.
I mean, nobody's going to wear 55 ever again, like in Eagles history. I'm sure of that because
that's true.
I think he's technically the greatest Eagle as far as like everything in his career, winning the 2 Super Bowls, things like that. But
yeah,
I think Lane Johnson is obviously a lock.
Chris has Lane, Barkley, AJ. We're going really early predictions, which I can appreciate. But Q, Hurts, and then he says who else? There's this 5. The Q is incredibly early. Now Q's been good, but like that is incredibly. I can appreciate though if that's the bet that you want to make. Does he make the Hall of Fame? Is difficult. Like people, you know. I mean, I forget. Sometimes I'll look at it and go, oh, yeah, that could be a Hall of Famer. Or you look at the numbers and say, who wasn't a Hall of Famer, right? It took Eric Allen way too long, but finally he got in. So sometimes, you know, it's just difficult getting in there.
Yeah.
Lane for sure. Lane is yes. I mean, I don't even know if, like, realistically talking, I don't know if Saquon can have another year or 2 like he's had, then okay. But I don't even know if with this past season, as historic as it is, that, you know, you'd go like, okay, yeah, he could be.
I don't want to upset anybody, but honestly, they feel like right now Lane Johnson's probably the only lock that's on the roster. I mean, if you're projecting like steady production moving forward for guys like Saquon, Jalen Hurts, whatever, especially like I think once you win a Super Bowl, that really helps you like as far as your Hall of Fame case.
100%, yeah. Because heck, Eli Manning is going to get there. So
that's exactly. I was going to take a shot at Eli Manning. So I'm glad we were right there together.
Yes,
but that's just like, I don't think Brandon Graham's a Hall of Famer, unfortunately. But I think right now Lane Johnson's probably the only lock in my eyes.
Okay, I'm gonna agree with you. Yes, the only lock as of today. But then I'll go ahead and I'll play this game. I'll speculate out a little bit.
Say it.
I'll speculate out. I'll do this. Okay, so Lane for sure, and then let's do this. You have to pick 4 others, right? You have to have 5. So Lane is 1, and then you have to predict out 4. All right. So and we'll both do this. So I'm gonna say Lane is 1. I'm gonna say Jalen Carter is 2. I'm gonna say. Man, I really want to say Saquon, but I'm just trying to think through this. I'm going to say Oh, you know what? Actually, I'm going to surprise maybe some people here. I'm going to say Cam Jurgens is 3. I'm going to say 4. I'll just go ahead and get it out of the way. I'll say Nolan Smith. But then for 5, who do I go with for 5? Man, I want to say. All right, 5 is going to be AJ. 5 will be AJ.
All right, so I'll go Lane Johnson.
Okay.
I will put Saquon on there.
Okay.
I'll put Jalen Hurts on there because I think rushing wise, he's going to be considered one of the best quarterbacks of all time from that category. Fair. I think he's going to break like all of those records. Jalen Carter, I feel like just the way he's started his career feels like he's going to be really good for a really, really long time. And then one I'm surprised you didn't say, but Jordan Mailata. I think he could be the next like Jason Peters where he plays until like his late 30s. It feels like right now in his late 20s or so, he's finally started to get the recognition where like he starts racking up all pros because that's a big thing for linemen making
the Hall of Fame.
And Philly kind of has something with offensive tackles playing for forever. So he could be that next one after Lane Johnson leaves.
Yeah, that's actually a good point. But I had to get Nolan on there. So,
I figured that. AJ Brown's a good one though. I think he's going to have a good case. But it just feels like there's so many receivers that should be in that aren't in.
That's true.
That it's just like, I don't know, it's tough.
Well, maybe just skip this segment because what's going to happen is people are going to watch this. They're going to hate it. They're going to comment back. Let us know your thoughts in the comment section. If you're watching it live, obviously, we'll share it here.
Listen,
but
when I come back 30 years from now, if YouTube still exists,
this is not a game that we will.
We called this. We said he was going to do it.
Some accurate ones and some not. Oh, people are just going to let us hear it, which is fantastic. John with 10 more Philly Special Show memberships. Let's go. Appreciate that, John. Heck yeah. Congratulations to everyone. Seeing lots of different names thrown out here. Smitty, Anish, go with Smitty. Did not say Smitty. Lane was yes a lot. I don't see a ton of Landon Dickerson. Okay. All right.
That's a good one.
Okay. And then just some confusing hot takes and disagreements and others that are a few that are confirming, but lots of disagreements. That's fine. Yeah, I see a couple
BG in there, but I don't know. What is that? 76 sacks in his career, or something like that. That's just not.
Yeah.
Has he ever made an All-Pro team either? I feel like that's. I don't know. He's obviously there was like a Philadelphia Hall of Fame
for sure.
He would be first ballot in there, but as far as like
foregone
totality, I don't know about that. A big thing with me as far as like judging Hall of Famers, I know we're going on a whole nother rant right now, but like if you were never considered like top 5 at your position at any point in your career, which is like my argument against Eli Manning, I feel like that's
come on now.
That's a thing. So I just feel like I never thought Brandon Graham was a top 5 guy in the league.
Okay. So if we did this thing, if we restarted and did this thing with that logic, then I mean, I could say Lane is 1, obviously, because there's a foregone conclusion. Jordan Mailata, Jalen Hurts, Saquon Barkley. I need more picks now. Actually, AJ Brown, Jalen Carter, Cooper DeJean. He was the best slot corner, and he started out better. So
you almost had my list automatically. So there you go.
Okay. See, well, heck yeah. All right, we'll take that. So yeah, there's the redone list for people that need the official one. Yeah, don't go based off of first take. Everybody's better. It's like my golf game. Second golfer is always better. Okay, let me get this giveaway teed up. Speaking of the future Hall of Famer Cooper DeJean, because I'm giving away the signed Cooper DeJean helmet to one individual from one of the previous videos. So I will spin this. The individual will have a little bit to claim it. I'll mention it on the next upcoming video. As always, if they don't claim it, I'll jump back on a live stream at some point, and it'll go to someone who's on the live stream able to claim that. So let's see here. Double check, make sure. I believe we're good. And good luck to everyone. Who shall it be? Ben Lusick, I believe it would be how I pronounce that last name. Ben Lusick, 9311. With I think Jalyx Hunt breaks out with more snaps this season. So congratulations, Ben. You have won the signed Cooper DeJean helmet. As always, please just DM me on one of the socials or email me, thephillyspecialshow@gmail.com. You can go down to the comment section of this video as well. For those people that are going to, maybe, hopefully this does not happen, but the scammers have been just ridiculous. So I don't have a bestie. I don't have a Zangy app or whatever that thing is. Just please don't fall for it. Just please do not. There will be other giveaways, everything else. Also, speaking of, because we had BG on the show much earlier this past season, but I got a signed Brandon Graham jersey that will be given away in an upcoming stream. So, stay tuned for that. There's other stuff. But, yeah, congratulations. Ben Lusick, if you're here, that'd be great. If not, comment section, email me, one of the socials, DM, something. I'll mention you in a video. And congratulations. So
Josh is doing his best impersonation of Oprah once again. You get a signed helmet. You get a signed jersey. You get this. You guys.
No.
Need to show this guy more love.
No. That's. I appreciate it, sir. Not necessary at all. We're just taking advantage of. We'll just say this: it's the best community in the world. Couldn't do it without every one of these people here, and all the others. But just trying to give back. So, the connections, and I've had people send me stuff, and they're like, hey man, give this away. The kids jerseys that I've given away, like just all the other random stuff, whether it be for players, fans, Eagles collabs, whatever. It's crazy. So, Nick, where do you get all this nice stuff, and why don't you keep it? Because, there you see, like John says, hey, paying it forward. That's honestly, to me, this, and I'll just say this too. I love all the Eagles memorabilia, and I have some for myself. It's not like everything goes out, but this to me is like making someone else's moment, the power of moments. And I'm getting like, I don't know, very like sentimental here, but that's just kind of who I am. But like making someone else's day, that's the best part of it to me. So just this opportunity that I'm blessed with to even be like, I don't know, kind of a conduit to be like, hey, here's some Eagles merch and giveaway stuff. Here you go. And like, the pictures that people send back, I think that's the best part, is like a selfie from a game or memorabilia or whatever. It's just pretty legit. So, actually, wait, speaking of, before 1 second, because I'm going to grab this. John is on the stream, and John sent me these that he 3D printed. So they're like right back here, but they're Lombardi trophies, like little mini ones.
What?
But 1 second.
Those are so cool.
There we go. They're small,
That's so cool.
But it's pretty legit.
It's like perfect for like a desk.
Oh, completely, yeah. And it sits back there now because it's a perfect spot because you can see it on the videos. But like, I'd never understood, I don't think, 3D printing until like John was on the Zoom call and kind of showing a little bit. But like, it's kind of insane, actually. Like it
still blows my mind.
It's
I don't
ridiculous.
understand any of it.
Yeah, I mean, this is the Eagles and Patriots one. So this is the first one, obviously. But it's got like the score. It's kind of hard to see a little bit, but you can kind of make it out. The NFL logo, score, teams, and then the latest one, then the Eagles and Chiefs. So, John, thank you for that.
What a guy.
That's awesome. Love it.
I was going to say, before you started saying that, I was like, this is a real role reversal stream. I mean, you're wearing the hat. You're the one getting emotional. I mean, what is going on here? Usually I'm the one that's all sappy, wearing a hat. What's going on?
I don't know. It's just, yeah. I don't know. I can't tell you. It's a blessing just
you're just
you're
just tired from playing golf.
Maybe so. It could be tired from playing golf. I'm wearing a hat today, Yeah, but I appreciate all you guys. Y'all are the best. Congrats again. I hope I didn't miss Ben. If Ben Lucas is here, hopefully I didn't miss that. I'm scrolling back up to just double check.
I didn't see anybody.
Okay. All right. Last question before we wrap the stream up here, because I did ask this, and going back to Ben's comment of saying he thinks Jalyx Hunt will break out with more snaps this season. I asked it in the previous video, got tons of different responses. Love it. So my question was, who do you think is the player to take that next step, right? And so like, I also said Jalyx Hunt in the video, so just all full transparency, which I know that he played well, but I'm just saying, like, getting more of those snaps, being that starter. Vic Fangio drafted him for a reason, was pounding the table according to the reports, like, hey, I want that guy. Crazy versatility. He's still really, really young in his game, as we were talking about earlier, but like safety and then to pass rush and having to learn these things. I could say Nolan Smith, but in my mind, I'm going like, look, Nolan broke the franchise sack record for playoffs. Like, he had 4 sacks in the playoffs, more than Hassan Reddick, number 1 in terms of that, and he had a really good season during the regular season. So not that he can't go above that. I'm not saying that he won't improve, but just more so like taking that next step for sure. I said Jalyx Hunt. It feels, a lot of people say Cooper DeJean, but I guess in my mind too, I'm going like, but he was the best slot. Like, what extra step we take? But that's fair. You could say Cooper DeJean. But curious. I'm just buying time for you to think of who that would be.
Well, I feel like
knowing
me especially, Jalyx Hunt would have been like the obvious answer.
You could you could absolutely say that.
I also like another guy, and I think he's going to do really well. And it might be a boring answer because it's not kind of a sexy position, but I'm going to go Tyler Steen. I think he's going to win that right guard spot. I know people were kind of up and down as far as how he played last season. I thought overall, given the situations he was kind of thrown into, I think he did really well. And I was high on him as a rookie. I thought he should have started over Cam Jurgens at right guard. I was kind of pounding the table for that because it kind of felt like a little bit of a wasted year having Cam Jurgens play out of position, but obviously it worked out. But I think Tyler Steen's finally going to take that right guard spot and do great things with it. I mean, on that offensive line with the 4 other players that they have there, it's kind of I feel like you could put me or you in there and they'd have a successful offensive line, but Tyler Steen, I think, is going to be set up for success there.
Somebody made the comment earlier. I can't remember who it was, but somebody was like, if Jeff Stoutland told me that I'd be an All-Pro even with my 2 arthritic knees and ACL injuries or whatever, I would believe him. So yeah, you get the dub from Jeff Stoutland. No matter who you are, you got a good opportunity. But I like that pick. That seems like a very reasonable
now I'm seeing
pick.
So many better answers in the chat. Josh B said Jordan Davis. Ramon said Moro Ojomo. Moro Ojomo is probably.
Oh, come on now.
Yeah, that's a good one too.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm still. Is it Ojima or Ojomo? I feel like I've heard it both ways, and I need to find out.
I've always said Ojomo, but I don't.
The PHLY guys say Ojima.
Ojima.
So I think so.
Maybe I've just always said Ojomo.
Either way,
and I've never,
Either way, he's gonna play a big role.
Yeah.
Season, and I'm really
Big Mo. We'll just call him Big Mo.
There you go. I think he's gonna make quite an impact on. I mean, I don't know if he's gonna replicate exactly what Milton Williams does, but I think he's gonna be. There's not gonna be too much of a fall off in that regard.
Okay. Yeah.
Can I ask one? Do we have time for one bonus question?
Sure.
And we haven't talked about this before.
Might as well, yeah.
But it sure seems like Brandon Graham's gonna stick around in some capacity with the team.
Mm-hmm.
What would you guess is going to be like his role? We've seen like Connor Barwin do like the kind of the training staff kind of point of it, where he's like working with the players, like player development staff. We've seen Darren Sproles where he was like the scout and whatnot. We've seen Jason Kelce, can't have a role because of the TV stuff, I guess, but he's kind of always around the building. So what do you think Brandon Graham's going to do in Philly?
That's a good question.
I would love like assistant defensive line coach. That would be awesome.
I would prefer.
But I don't know if coaching is too much of a demand, because basically like coaches are almost there more, if not, like as much as players. So like that he wouldn't really be retiring. Whereas I feel like if he's like a personnel or like some kind of like communications thing.
I got it. He's going to be the assistant to Big Dom. That's what you're making. The assistant to Big Dom, and you're sold, right? Because he can be in charge. He can be on the sidelines there, helping with whatever Big Dom needs to help with, during the games. And obviously, Big Dom got the upgrade after the altercation with Dre Greenlaw and how that.
He's at what, like 3 titles now?
I think so. He's got many different titles. But see, that one would solve both purposes, because he could be there during practice. He could help out as if he's a coach, but he doesn't have to have the extreme demand to be like, you are that guy in that role.
Yeah.
I'm kind of with you, though. I would prefer it if he's like, no, I'm locked in, baby. Like, we're doing this thing. I'm going to be assistant D-line coach. I want to be here. But I could definitely see where it's like, look, you've talked with your wife about this, I'm retiring, more time with the kids. And then all of a sudden actually, psych, I'm going back. I'm going to be at the building 60 hours, 70 hours a week. But yeah, you should make him the assistant to Big Dom.
Yeah, I'm trying to like go to their website and just see what the different titles are, try to figure one out. But yeah, I don't. I like he's just such like a lovable guy. The way like the Eagles posted the video where he like went into the cafeteria and everybody was there, and he was
Oh
like,
yeah.
"Listen, I'm not going anywhere. Like I'm gonna still be around, whatever." So he said he was gonna have dinner with Jeffrey Lurie or whatever and kind of figure out. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm excited to see what it's gonna be.
There's actually really good takes too. So John says official hype man / trash talker. I don't know if that could be an official title, but I do like that. I think that's a good one there. Let's see. I was going to mention real quickly as well. Let's see. Eagle One. Appreciate that. Gifted 5 Philly Special Show membership. So I missed that one, but Eagle One with 5. Let's go. Where was the other one? Oh, come on. I can't miss this one. Where was it? Player development, coaching hype man, the chaplain, BG, the chaplain, also the minister of culture. That could be good.
They should just create something great. But I'm
That
looking
would
up
be
now.
epic.
So Connor Barron's official title is the head of football development and strategy, and then Matt Leo is another guy that was like he was like an international pathway player. Then he's stuck around as
he got a
he's
little
player development assistant. So maybe BG just kind of goes in that role as like a player. But it seemed like they're always on like the sideline and stuff too. I don't know how demanding that job is.
Yeah, Leo got
They'll find
exposed a little
something
bit.
for him. Yes, he did. He was the guy with the underwear, right?
Yeah, it's so sad that it's like that's
Hey,
how he's remembered for most
listen.
people. They're like, okay. I mean, there's just so many different roles, so many different titles that they have for him.
He could just be like the hype man in the weight room. Just like he doesn't have to go on
Yeah.
the field. Just
Yeah.
hype them up when they're working out and then just go home. He's in for like an hour lift session, and that's it.
He can get some workouts in. I think it's perfect.
That's so good.
I like it. Tristan, when will Josh notice the gifted subs? I did. I noticed it for Matt. The Eagle One. Let's go. 10 more. Y'all are the best. For real. Y'all know that. But members with the special giveaway there. Also, quick note for the Zoom call and the regular live streams. I know they've been doing a lot of these on Tuesdays. Fridays have been delayed. CrossFit things and family stuff and all that. But again, this Friday will not have a live stream. Should be back the following. Definitely will be for the Zoom member call for the Hungry Dogs Tier and Higher. So for those that are wondering, one more Friday that'll be off in terms of the live stream. But should be back to regular scheduled programming the end of March. And then, of course, like we said, that means we're basically, a month away till the draft, full-blown draft prep. Going to have some mock drafts. We'll probably get on here and do a live. We'll go through some picks, perhaps.
Count me in.
Okay. Get to draft our safety.
I mean, it's a little less fun doing mock drafts from 32, but it's all right. Make it work.
Yeah, it definitely.
You can get a little creative with those
definitely
5.
Is.
With those, well, what is it? 3 now? 3 fifth-round picks, and then
True. Yeah.
You can kind of throw out a Dallas Goedert trade or a Bryce Huff trade and see what happens. But
see, that's the issue. I feel like I almost have to throw out one of those trades now.
Yeah.
Like, no, we gotta get things going. I can't wait till 32. I can't wait till 27 and trade up. I gotta do something at the start of the draft so then I know where I'm at. But we'll see. Howie's surely gonna move around. The question is, how busy is he on the first night? If he's not, second night will be a decent amount, I'm sure. But be here before you know it. What, March 18th? A little over a month.
Flying by. I feel like it was just January, and this is like, oh, it's 2025 now. It's like, oh, it's almost the end of March already. It's like, geez.
It's ridiculous. All right. I do need to jump, though. Yeah. I'm getting the bedtime help.
Help me.
So, yeah, I'm going to jump, but appreciate it, as always, jumping on. Anthony, it was fun. Make sure, again, everyone, I'll just say this one more time. You probably already are. If you are not, go follow at DiBona NFL. Make sure to like on your way out. Subscribe. Stay tuned. Congrats again to Ben for winning the signed Cooper DeJean helmet. Hit me up. I'll message you as well. And y'all know what it is. Go Birds.